This show is brought to you by our friends at bayphoto.com. Head over after the show to print something amazing. Be sure to check out their specials at bayphoto.com/specials.
Hello, Luke Ayers here. Let's cover another topic that's got the beginner's world like, oh my god, I'm frantic to upgrade because my photo's not good enough if I don't have that camera. Let's talk about this thing like full frame, crop frame, and the little tiny micro frames. We're talking here about the sensors, okay? Let me just quickly show you. Yeah, good. See the sensor in the back there, all right? We're talking about sizes here, man. It's almost, and it gets as crazy as literally like, what's the size of your freaking dongle, man? Because it's kind of like, it seems to be a big deal and an important deal, and the sort of deal where, if you don't have the biggest available sensor in your camera, it's just like, you're nothing, man. You can go sit with the losers, man, because we only shoot with full frame, because we're awesome, Yeah. Good. Let's just quickly go over what the real truth is here, and why there's a difference at all. Okay, so this camera here, this is my old faithful 10-year-old professional camera. It's got what's called a full frame sensor. Now it's called full frame because frame is talking about the sensor itself, like that rectangular thing in there which records the light. It's called full frame because in digital it takes up the same amount of space as a full frame of film. In the old days before digital, there was film. You get a strip of film, and on this strip would be all these frames, which are literally just the rectangular boxes which get your photo imprinted onto them. And film had a certain size, and then digital cameras, you can get the sensors in different sizes, and full frame covers the full size of that frame of original film. And then there's other digital cameras you can get, which are called crop frame, which means it's just cropped, it's cut down. It's not the full size of that piece of original film. It's sort of like a cropped. You just kind of cut off the tops and the sides a bit. It's a bit smaller. Doing that allows you to make the camera itself smaller. Like this is a full frame camera. As you can see, it's got some chunk to it. But having a smaller sensor allows you to make the whole camera smaller, and then you can get even smaller, blah, blah, blah. And then you get ones so small that then they fit in your phone these days, right? Now people get like nerdy into the thing that, oh, I need this big one because it has so many more amazing benefits that will make me look like I'm a professional and will make me, an Annie Leibovitz, because I have full frame. All right. Now, full frame is more expensive. To buy a full frame camera, it's more expensive because you got a bigger sensor there. They have to manufacture it and put the protons and the pixels in there. Makes it more expensive, okay? Makes camera brands make more money by selling full frame rather than crop frame sensors. But, okay, what's the actual differences here? Now, it's pushed a lot that having a full frame sensor in your camera, it's better in low light, as in the ISO, which I talk about in another video, can go higher and higher and will still, you will not see much grain and crustiness in your photos because having a larger sensor means that more light can hit the sensor and be recorded. It's not an issue today. It's not an issue. At least not from what I see personally. All right, you can have any size of sensor, and because the technology and the megabits and the gigatrons and the Pentium 4 processing that go into these sensors, even crop frame or smaller sensors can go to really high ISOs and still look very clean. Okay, it's not a consideration that I think exists anymore today. Maybe earlier it did. Earlier, maybe like 15 years ago, it mattered. Not really today. Another difference is that now with lenses, okay, now all lenses have a millimeter rating on them, okay? The higher the number, this is for example an 85 millimeter lens, all right? Now 85, you really have to see to tell the difference when you're looking through them. But the higher the number, the millimeter rating, the more zoomed in it is. That's it. Okay, so a really wide lens, for instance, such as like a 24 millimeter, it's a low number, means it's very wide. Okay, then a very high number like 200 millimeter would be very zoomed in. Now, the main and most important difference between sensor sizes is that having a bigger sensor is like having a bigger eyeball. Because it's bigger, it can see wider spaces. So if you put this 85 millimeter on here, on a full frame camera, you will see what looks like the normal way an 85 millimeter lens looks when you look through it. But if you put this same lens onto a cropped sensor body, because the sensor is cropped, it's a bit smaller, it's cutting down how much you can see through the lens. You're not seeing all the way to the edges of this lens. You're seeing sort of a cropped in version of it, which effectively gives the result of this same lens, if I put it on a crop sensor body, looking more zoomed in. It looks like this is more of a maybe 120 millimeter lens if I put this same lens onto a cropped sensor camera body. Okay? And then if we went for an even smaller lens, smaller sensor, such as this thing called Micro Four Thirds, which is just a fancy name for an even smaller sensor, this would look even more zoomed in, but it's the same lens, okay? But all you're getting is like a smaller eyeball that's looking through the lens. And because, you take a photo and it all comes up the same size on your screen, it looks like on a smaller sensor camera that it looks more zoomed in when you're using the same lens. But it's just seeing less and less of the full space that the lens can see. Okay, that's the most important consideration of what size sensor you would use, okay? Now, having said that, it's kind of like, 5-10 years ago, it's kind of like, okay, that would be important. You would, if you wanted to see the widest possible view, you would get a full frame sensor, because then you could put on a very wide lens and you would see very wide. Whereas if you put that wide lens on a crop frame sensor, you would not be able to see as wide a view. Okay? But conversely, if you're someone who really wants to get zoomed in close, then you would avoid a full frame camera, because full frame lenses need to be big and hefty and chunky to be able to zoom in more. But you could put the same lens onto a very small sensored camera and it would look super zoomed in. So you could actually achieve more zoom on a smaller sensor camera than you could on a full frame sensor. But this is actually not even a consideration anymore to think about, because now, today, there are lenses that even go on small sensor camera bodies that can see super wide. So again, that's not really something that you need to worry about either. So it's like there's two main arguments for why you need certain size sensors. It's kind of like, bigger will give you better quality low light performance. It's not really an issue anymore. They say that full frame will give you, allow you to see further, wider views. Angles of view when looking through your camera. That's not even an issue anymore. And the third thing that I can think of is that what appears to be the case is that when you put a lens on a full frame camera, it will give the effect, because the eyeball is bigger, of less being in focus. If you like to shoot with wide open apertures, aperture being the hole in the lens, for beginners watching this, the wider your aperture is, the less of your photo will be in focus, okay? And having a bigger sensor allows the camera to give the effect that called depth of field, how much is in focus, is even smaller. So now look, this single reason was the main thing why a few years ago I was like, I needed a full frame camera. Because I like to take portraits and I like to just, get a really blurry background and just get the person in focus. And then even myself debunked that, because recently I bought a new little crop sensor, Sony camera, which I'm recording this on right now. And I bought a lens with a wide aperture on it, and I looked through it and I'm like, damn, there's no difference. I mean, there's a tiny difference, but it's not even anything I need to worry about anymore. It's not a thing. So there's the three reasons why full frame is a must-have. High ISO performance, wider fields of view, and get less in focus. And even myself, it's kind of like, it's not necessary. If I feel like carrying less of a chunky camera in the future around, I no longer have an issue of not using full frame, because literally there's no difference anymore from what I see. And everyone can argue their own viewpoints, but from my experience and the resulting photograph, which is all that actually matters, no one will know the difference whether you used a full frame, a crop frame sensor, a micro sensor. Even these damn iPhone sensors are like crazy ridiculous, and they're like the size of a chestnut pimple. Okay, so it's not an issue. You're not going to die if you have a smaller sensor. In fact, you will live.
Please subscribe and enable the bell so you don't miss any of our new shows. Like the video and please share it and leave your comments. I love hearing from you. And remember to get out and capture your own images of life.